Greetings, Vancouver. Welcome back to another episode of Vancouver Real. My name is Mike Zaremba, and always with me is my big brother, Andy.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
And as always, we are podcasting here at a float house at 70 West Cordova Street in downtown Vancouver, BC, in the Gastown area. And we have two locations in Vancouver, one in Kitsilano as well at West 4th and Cypress. And we do floating. That's what we do. We have float tanks out the yin yang, and we float all day and all night. Actually, we got our 24-hour floats going again.
Yes,
at
that's
Gastown,
nice.
so you can float
2.5 hours this time too.
2.5 hours for the same price as 60 or 90 minutes.
And if you want to use the promo code, what's a good one? I think this episode promo code recovery would be good.
Yes,
recovery.
Very fitting for if anyone is watching this episode because of who our guest brings into it today. The float tank is an excellent modality for recovery purposes, which maybe we'll get into with this talk as well. And always we want to plug a little bit Omega YouTube channel, Omega Point YouTube channel, excuse me for blundering that Omid, but our good friend Omid helps us with the tech behind the scenes here, and he helps us out, and he's got a really cool YouTube channel called Omega Point, and that he creates these very inspirational 2-3 minute length videos that he does montages with very famous speakers. And thank you for your help, Omid, and Omega Point YouTube. Go subscribe there. And today's guest is really exciting for me personally.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah.
Peter Twist is here with us, a local. Well, you're now adopted as a local for sure. You're not born and raised here. I know that. Neither was I.
We're all transplants, right?
I've put in my 25 West Coast years, so
now
I've just passed and graduated. Authentic West Coaster.
Once you hit that quarter century mark.
100%.
So Peter Twist is. Who's Peter Twist? He's an author. He's the founder of Twist Sport Conditioning, the original center being in North Vancouver. You're a pioneer of functional fitness, and you now really travel the world speaking health and wellness and fitness and performance fitness as well, sport conditioning specifically. And I was very fortunate to cross into your realm back in 2006. I was doing some grad school at UBC with Dr. Rhodes, and I don't remember how I stumbled upon Twist Conditioning at that time, but I saw it online and I got in touch, and I started working with the hockey conditioning camps that you offer there. And that at the time for me was I was doing my master's in coaching science at UBC.
Yes. And
I just passed my CSCS certification, which is the strength and conditioning kind of accreditation, and I didn't know what, I needed to get experience. And I looked online and I saw your company, and I was like, I've never seen anything like this before. And really at the time, saying that you're a pioneer for functional fitness and sport conditioning is actually 100% truth. And I researched this actually. I did this, my whole presentation for my coaching science thesis basically was kind of going through the history of strength and conditioning coaching and going through that and obviously how it evolved from the strongmen of the early days and then into like kind of Nebraska football days of strength. They kind of took it a long way, but especially with your background in hockey is a specialty really, and you were the strength and conditioning coach for the Canucks from what time period was that from?
I was 93 to about 2004, I believe.
Yeah.
10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
Great years.
And you really did revolutionize sport conditioning in North America for sure. And so long-winded by me, but I felt obliged to say it because you've been a huge role model to me in that part of my life, and I really want to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate the good words very much.
Cool.
I think we have a very similar starting point from our backgrounds in that coaching science and our strength and conditioning coach certifications and focus on elite sport. So, similar launching pads.
Well, we even went to McMaster. We both did our undergrads there in phys ed.
That's right.
And then I came out here. So I was mirroring your path a little bit. And then when I learned
you're a Mac man.
That's right.
From the Hammer.
100%.
Right. Did you play any sports there at all? Or?
I played varsity ice hockey there.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
And played a little junior hockey there. The head coach was a high school football coach.
Cool.
So as you know, you can bring a lot of good football technique mechanically into ice hockey. So it upped our game on the ice.
Sure.
Cool.
But yeah, so it's very similar paths, you know, but now here I am in your home. This is a great vibe in here, and I think I'm going to continue our synergistic path. I might even apply for a job here. This is a great spot.
Dude, you could be the
Hired on the spot. Done.
There you go. Float ambassador.
Yeah. Actually, float ambassador would be a great role.
But just off the cop too, it's there's twistsportconditioning.com is the main website. That is a hub you can actually link to. Now you have 10 franchises. I saw, or is it 10 or is it 9?
We do have 10, yes.
I was counting, but I saw Sydney's on the way. And
Sydney's on the way. We've got Thailand, and we've actually had, and this is funny, but it's a true factual story. We've set the slowest rate of franchise growth of any franchise in any industry.
Wow. Well, we might challenge that, actually.
Yeah.
yes, I think we will challenge that.
Purposely, though, and it's interesting because, you know, we've got, in the trainer and coach world, we've got a global brand that's known amongst trainers, hence we educate and certify trainers around the world. So we have, in that niche area, we've got a really nice following. Hence, we've had over 2,500 inquiries into our franchise system now.
Amazing.
Of people that want to set up functional gyms or athletic gyms.
Yeah.
But we've only awarded 10.
Wow.
And like many things, we want to differentiate. There's a real kind of Walmarting of the fitness industry.
Yeah.
And we want to be differentiated on quality. And so we've set up 10. We've done it at a purposeful, slow pace. We're really we've refined it and we've figured out how to do that to handle growth well. So we're ready to grow at a much larger pace, but we could have sold 100 or 200 by now. But we didn't. You have to prove you can run 10
really
before
smart.
you run 200, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's tempting.
Yeah.
It is. It's tempting for us too with Float House. Like we have this urge to grow, and we see like the floating industry growing all over North America now. And we're like, oh, another one opened up, and another one opened up, and we're just like, oh, missed opportunity. But we're like, no, let's, you know, we are moving at a slow pace, and every time we do a new center, it gets better. Every single time.
100%.
You know, so I think, you know, we have this itch and we see it happening in other places. Like, oh, it should be us.
But I think there's a lot of, wisdom.
Quality over quantity, right?
Yeah. From the delivery, for what you service people with, and the culture that you enjoy, that people enjoy coming in for, and even personal, aligning what you do with aligning your doing with your being.
Yes.
And, does working 500 hours running 100 centers align with what your lifestyle by design, or does smaller more that's impactful, and larger isn't always successful, and smaller can be more successful business wise also.
That's very wise,
right? Growth and success is more difficult than failure. Like having something grow fast successfully is very difficult, and difficult to sustain it. So protecting your house, what you have, and inching that forward, probably the best plan you guys are on.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of happened. It's happening naturally, I would say. And just because there's always some sort of hiccup that would come up, or just doesn't work, or not the right person, or financing falls through. Who knows what? Like there's always things, and it's kind of just trusting the process. Trusting that we're learning things at the rate we can, and you can only apply it at the rate it's willing to evolve at. You can't force things. That thing about being more in the flow of what's happening versus pushing it. There's a time to push, but then there's also time to ease off. It's like finding that balance.
Question. I'm really intrigued about Thailand. What made you decide to go to Thailand?
Thailand?
Yeah.
Oh, it was fun.
Or going to Thailand. Okay, that's a good enough reason right there.
No,
it's true though.
I spent 6 years over there lecturing and presenting and consulting, so I had a really great following. And you were kind enough to mention sort of the pioneer process with functional training and sport performance of that type of training style, and that was something I launched in 1994 in New Orleans in between hand grenade drinks on Bourbon Street. Somehow pulled off a lecture, and the lecture was a new training paradigm that was completely contrarian to how athletes and bodybuilders and fitness enthusiasts were exercising. And so at that time, about 50% of the people was like, the best thing since sliced bread. It was all epiphany after epiphany. They came on board right away. And about 50% had violent opposition to it because it was contrary to everything they believed in and invested their career in. But that took a lot of years to shift to now what the industry is buying into. But over in Asia, it's not so long of a process, but they're very early into the curve into fitness, and they're kind of getting functional fitness right away. But they're still very young and neophytes who are in the industry, very early in their learning curve. So I've given a lot of education there, have a great following, lots of interest in gyms and more in India, Singapore, Philippines, Japan. So we will set up and populate those. But we chose Thailand. Clearly, it sounds like we have no geographical growth plan. We're in Canada, the States, boom, Thailand. Yeah. But we had a nice following, a lot of brand recognition, and there was one person in particular who I trusted, who I met for 6 years, who I knew their heart was in the right place for education and for coaching and training.
Right.
And I don't usually pick the best business person. I pick someone whose heart's in the right place. I know they're in it for the right reasons, and we have fun trying to make a go of it from there.
Yeah, cool. It's another great piece of advice actually for anyone starting a business. It's easy if somebody has, you know, the right amount for your franchising fees or whatever it is, and they're like, I'm ready to go, but if they don't align, you know, maybe it's not the best partner for you.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where you apply. You know, you guys were talking about different ways to move forward. We used to say for, you know, athletic performance, personal performance, whether it's, you know, fitness, active aging, business, anything. You know, I was a big believer in jumping in with both feet, hitting the ground running, and then just do whatever it takes and do the hard yards. And I still have that motivation and work ethic. But a friend of mine, and she's fairly spiritual, real soulful gal, and she said, well, if you jump in with both feet and hit the ground running, she goes, don't you ever think to pause and make sure you're jumping in the right direction?
Yeah.
And so I was a big believer for performance, the P's, you get purpose and passion, you know, you get performance. And a lot of people outside in the world have a lot of fear and apathy, and modern businesses monetize fear and apathy and feed it.
Yep.
And a lot of people are trying to restore and recover to who they once were and be passionate and enthusiastic and positive and healthy again. So I believed I was turning fear and apathy into purpose and passion to get people on a track to performance, but I added patience. Patience is very important. Purpose with passion, but a lot of patience. And to do the right things at the right time, and sometimes just pause and not move at all, and other times be in motion, and be patient for a long-term process and do things right on that side.
That's a great philosophy.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. It's not all about you know, speed and growth, which just happens to be, you know, it's a shift actually in perspective for business for most people in North America, I'd say, at least anyways, right? It seems like let's grow as big as we can, make as much as we can, as quickly as we can. But you know, maybe the quality drops off sometimes. Right?
Or you lose sight of what was the original. Why did I get involved with this in the first place?
Yes.
You know, and that initial intention could be clouded, so to speak. And that's the thing too. Like when you started Twist Conditioning in North Van, you know, you kind of have like different segments to this business too. You have the training side.
Yes.
You know, you deal with athletes, and that's probably what you're best known for. But you did at least have a product side. Do you still have your products going as well?
We're involved in the product business, but more as the rainmakers,
right?
On that side, and the educators,
right? How to use them? How to train? How to use these pieces of equipment safely?
100%. Yeah, we're bringing new tools to the market, but someone else is capitalizing it, manufacturing, distributing, and I'm putting those pieces together from a business model, and to make that sort of play in the industry. But then I take my role, which is more where my heart is, and that's educating and inspiring and so on.
That third pillar that I was going to get to is the education. You actually have the certification programs, and you go all over teaching these certifications, and it's been, you know, I think for me, definitely the most value that I've gained from working with you back in the day was learning these functional ideas of how to train a body, completely different from what I trained even just a few years ago before that in university. And it just was like, it was paradigm shifting even. And it's funny how you were presenting this stuff in '94 and I was in 2006 first learning it. So it takes a long time to spread this any type of information correctly, I assume, eh?
Information does, and that's an area that you know, I had intuitively, you know, combine the sports sciences with the human body, with sport characteristics, and you come out with this training style. It feels so natural to me to create and innovate.
Yeah.
So I was very ahead of the curve. But then there's other areas on health and performance and restoration that I'm, you know, someone else was advocating 5 decades ago.
Sure.
That I'm enjoying, you know, the epiphanies of learning new things and getting on the bandwagon of being a messenger for other things, right?
I got a question off that, actually. Did you find, since you were so far ahead of the curve, kind of, that there was almost a lag of where you knew this business model could go before it actually got there, because it was just so far ahead? Like, we kind of could see a little bit of that with Floathouse. Like, it's very unconventional to go and pay someone money to go into a dark box for 90 minutes. Okay? So it's like, did you have anything?
It really reminds me of the early of where we're at right now, what you're talking about, to be honest with you, and the education around what we're doing and why you would even do it this way.
Yes.
You know, why slow down your pace of living? Why go into a black box full of water? You know, and I can imagine you speaking to like a room full of bodybuilders and then being like, well, why should I do whatever functional fitness
Why do I want to
exercise?
stand on a ball?
Yeah, whatever. You know? Yeah, he's probably better to elaborate on that.
Did you encounter any type of lag between people getting it and like where your business was going? Did you have anything like that?
Oh, for sure. When you're the only person marketing something, it's much more difficult than if you have 20 competitors and you're all marketing the same thing.
That's another interesting point, actually. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, at the very start, you mentioned the product division. The product division was very, very lucrative for us. You know, it's a 7-figure business, and we enjoyed it to the point of learning a lot about being more sophisticated in business. But there's a lot of people in that business that their heart's not into it. They're just there to make if they can make a nickel today. And so you deal with people that are a little bit more unpleasant in that industry. And at the flip of a switch, we got rid of it. It was somewhat courageous, but sometimes things that people perceive as courageous just feel so natural to you.
Right.
And we've come full circle to education and coaching and developing on that side. But on the product side, when we started it out, they were all products, exercise tools for a training style that no one was really doing.
Yeah.
And these were really niche products that someone in Texas was making this one product in his basement, and and there were some athletes that bought into it, but far there was a huge gap. And Mike and Andy, I remember getting business advice. Here's my business plan to add products. I presented it to 6 business people, mentors, to provide me feedback, and 6 people in fitness and sport. So 12 people heard my presentation to get into this product business, and all 12 said, no, don't do it.
Wow.
No one knows this training style. There's no need for the products. They're low margin products. There's no,
Wow.
All 12 said no. And if 6 said yes and 6 said no, I'd probably be kind of confused and uncertain. But when all 12 said no, I knew I was onto something great.
Wow.
And there was such a gap and such a lag. They didn't see
awesome.
it. And I saw it so clearly. And I took that as affirmation that I'm ahead of the curve, and now it's time to giddy up and get going on this, and we can build the market. But yes, there was a gap in filling camps and filling gyms and selling products, and education was a big part of that. There's lots of reasons to do it. When I started out in any career from high school, I imagined being a physical education teacher. And then I started working towards being a head coach at university ice hockey. Then I shifted to more of a strength and conditioning coach. And now I train and I coach. I mainly teach around the world, but all of it's to do with exercise and giving a body that works for people and building physical literacy. And so I still am a phys ed teacher. I just created different environments to do it in. In that case.
And you probably wouldn't have learned nearly as much as you have if you were in kind of just a traditional phys ed role.
I would have been thrown out of there in a couple of years for sure. Changing the whole curriculum, not following the rules.
They don't you're more entrepreneurial. I think.
Well, and it was cool though. Like one of those products that well, two actually that I know have probably you got on really early with were the Bosu and the TRX.
Yes.
I don't think I'd ever used. He was using TRX a long time. We both have a TRX now that
Awesome.
I use quite a bit. But yeah, like that was the first time I got it. I'm like, suspension. What the hell am I gonna do with this thing? I remember coming from I was a fit guy when I came to twist conditioning, but I couldn't do the wobble board. I couldn't do any of that stuff. So I would stay after like the coaching sessions to practice because I had to feel like I could competently teach this if I could actually do it. So it was really interesting how I was like an athlete at the time, but I couldn't do what I was trying to coach. So I felt this disconnect. So I made sure I definitely put in the extra time before and after the kids got there to practice because I felt like a fake, but it came and I got really good at it too. But
That's cool.
Yeah.
So the question for you then, how did you kind of come across this way of training? So Mike's understanding is much more in depth than mine of this, but I understand like Nebraska football was like really ahead of the curve in terms of their training. Did you kind of stumble upon it? Did you hear about it from somebody else and then you kind of say that's what we need to be doing? Or is it something you kind of developed on your own just from like your own practice and training and everything that you did?
I think Andy, the easiest way to answer it is my mindset was I was involved in sport, not in fitness. So I was focused on performance, not appearance. And I would sit in coaches' rooms and we'd evaluate athletes, on their movement skills and their lateral movement and things like that. And I'd listen to the language coaches would use and what they're looking for in athletes, and it was much different than what fitness people would talk about and how they were training and what they were building in their body.
Right, yeah.
And I just seemed to come to me naturally, where I looked at, in strength and conditioning, there was a lot of power lifting, Olympic lifting, squats, cleans, multi-joint lifts, still staples today, a big part of CrossFit, places like that. And so I developed a linked system training method that was about 1,000 more exercises that were based on the multi-joint power development of Olympic lifting and power lifting, but surely there can be more exercises than the handful there. That train the body more in a 3D fashion.
Yeah.
And I saw what we were trying to train for movement abilities, for speed, agility, quickness in athletes. And so I started to take segments of movement skills and integrate them into multi-joint lifts. So now you're integrating movement with lifting. And then the balance part came not so much to replicate instability from sport, but more to understanding that we want to work on the software of the body and overload the brain to coordinate, to make more of the body come to the party of figuring out what the heck's going on.
Yeah, interesting.
Right.
One thing,
and I just started seeing a trainer, and his name's Glenn, and he's one of our float ambassadors. Awesome guy, trained at a lot of universities in the States and things like that. And he's got me doing this completely different stuff than I've ever done before, and he calls it intra-abdominal pressure training. And he started me basically just lying on a table, pushing my low back into the table, inflating my stomach, so like breathing in, blowing out, and then doing everything like that. So that becomes your operating system. And I found I've been going once a week for maybe about 2 months now, and it's amazing. 'Cause I think you use the term, it's called linked something.
linked system training.
Yeah,
linked system training.
Yeah, you're like linking your toe, ankle, knee, hip,
that's
core,
what he was
shoulder.
saying.
Yeah.
He's like, what you're doing now is you're training your whole body to talk to each other.
Right.
As opposed to like, doing single joint exercises or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And now it's interesting how I feel, because I do feel that connection going through the whole body. When I'm like, wow, I wish I learned this when I was 15 when I was playing football.
Well, and
and
you would
100%.
Yeah.
You would teach. I mean, I took one of the certifications that you offer, and you can add intensity in a lot of different ways. Traditionally, people think of intensity as like longer duration, more weight, or faster.
Right on. Yeah.
But then you're like, well, there's balance and instability. That's it. You can increase intensity by adding instability. You can increase intensity by having reactivity. Are you reacting to something?
Yeah.
And then multi-directional and all that kind of stuff. So I had personally not been exposed to that before. It's like you can increase intensity in a lot of different ways, and
lots of ways to overload, challenge, and confuse the human machine. And this is the only machine in the world not fully understood by anyone.
Still.
So anyone that speaks with a chip on their shoulder and ego, you can humble them right away. they don't. There's no one, myself included, that does. No one fully understands the human machine. So that complexity of the machine gives us opportunity to explore and be curious and find more ways to stimulate and overload in different ways to cause it to cohesify and communicate more, or to get stronger and more powerful.
Totally.
The question I had for you is, he's a really good coach in teaching me on how to do it, and he's tweaking me up constantly while I'm doing these exercises. What do you think is going on there? Like, so when I'm inflating my abdominal cavity like that, and I'm pressing my back flat, I'm inflating my abdominal cavity. He's basically saying that I guess what he said is you're firing your entire core now. Would you agree with that? Like, does that make sense to you?
It does make sense. There's there's several different ways to do that. That's a very good one. And you are getting that corset type approach, 360 degrees around your torso. And you're building from the inside of the body out, from the center to the periphery. And then you can help connect the chain. On that aspect.
And I do feel like I'm starting from scratch again. Like I'm literally sorry, wrong
That's
camera.
all right.
There we go.
When he put the camera on me, I just smiled.
I'm literally like he said, you're rebuilding the way your body works from the inside out. And it feels great, and I love it. You know, and again, it's one of those things I wish I'd started.
I know.
When I was actually going into my athletic prime, as opposed to kind of.
The kids today are going to have such a. I mean, it's going to be amazing to see the athletes of the future. I mean, even the athletes, the current like pros right now, and they're in their early 20s and stuff. We're seeing some just impeccable performances now. Like
step changing, isn't it?
It's so cool.
Like,
and I mean you, especially with hockey, because hockey probably before you got involved with strength and conditioning and hockey players did not really train. They would skate a lot probably, but they didn't really go off ice stuff, did they?
No, they didn't train, and the first teams that made them train and tested and trained, they saw it as punishment versus or something to use against them versus an opportunity. And they did it because they had to. And it was very difficult to get guys to train. You know, you had to be, I wasn't there as their friend, I was there as their coach, and I had to be the hard ass to get them to comply and to make sure the whole team's bought in and build that culture, and it came year by year. There's one of my last years with the Canucks, I can't remember who it was, but we traded for someone. I think it was during the Mike Keenan days, so there was someone about every 3 days being traded. And it came in, and I was the first in the NHL to start doing multi-joint lifts and anaerobic sprints after games. Because it's interesting when you have a sport, and we're talking about hockey, you know, would you agree that hockey uses speed? You use speed,
100%,
and you need strength for hockey. So you build strength for hockey, and in a hockey game in the season you express strength, but even though you're expressing and using strength in hockey, you're not receiving the type of loading and positioning that's going to build strength in your body. So it's an interesting concept for people in a sport. Through a season, an athlete can express an attribute like strength and show strength, but they're actually losing strength through the season by expressing strength in the nature they do in their sport isn't the right type of overloading to build muscle and continue strength. So NHL players would lose a lot of strength during the season because there's no time to train. You're playing every second day. There's no good rest days. Work, rest, work, rest.
I see. So you would couple it on to after the game.
I would work out within 30 minutes of a game, and so we fit in about 40 to 50 more workouts a year than other teams would, and after every workout we would have 48 hours rest to the next game, so more recovery restoration. Where other teams, if they trained at all, they would wait till the next day, the practice day. The players are kind of sore and tired from the game by that point. They're only 24 hours to the next game, so they can't do very much. So it's a workout that doesn't really count or accomplish anything on there.
And I was wondering, like I had a coach when I was in the States. He was really big on the functional fitness stuff, and he started talking about this functional stuff fairly early on, not as early as 94, but this was back in 99, 98.
That's early.
And he was on it, and he got us doing that kind of stuff from the get-go. And his whole thing was, he's like, even though we're in mid-season and we're practicing every day, we have one game a week. It's not like hockey, but you're still practicing and breaking down.
You guys are still pretty tough.
Yeah, well, we're not making comparisons here. But But he was saying that if you do it right, you can actually gain strength in the season and get stronger as the season goes on. Did you find that your players were getting stronger and performing better at the end of the season, or was there still like a breakdown happening?
No, they could improve through the season.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and some of that was a little bit dependent on their commitment to it. Even though it's mandatory, it's still how they decide to show up and engage in it.
Yeah.
Dependent on their minutes as well. You know, if it's a goaltender playing every game or a defenseman playing 30 minutes a game versus someone's getting 5 minutes a game, you know, the guy doing 5 minutes a game is able to do a little bit more training and would tend to improve as your
my old coach was saying.
Yeah. Which is a remarkable difference. Then you start to differentiate and create a gap between others.
And it was cool. Like, I mean, I was at D2 school, and they were really big on pushing their program. So they hired really good players, but it was still really early on when I was there, so we weren't all that successful. But we always were able to outwork teams, and like we were more conditioned than almost anybody we played, which was really good. Except we were just kind of outgunned most of the time. What it came down to, really. But now that, you know, actually that school is like, you know, consistent national champions after building on that. But I was in the early days.
You were part of the building that culture, though, of that type of relentless commitment on there.
Exactly. And we had some really hard-nosed coaches, but they were also intelligent too. Like, they were actually coming at it a smart way.
Yeah.
Right? But
it's great to hear.
Yeah,
it's a good story.
No, but I think it's really cool to see the progression and where it's all gone to now, you know. And now it's like functional fitness is kind of almost the norm and mainstream now, or becoming that a lot more. Like the bodybuilding routines are kind of falling off a little bit, and now you're seeing, well, you know, CrossFit and all these other type of gyms.
So even just for normal you know, basically you don't say you can be just an adult. That's why you have these adult functional fitness classes, and those were like the first ones I've ever heard of that kind, you know. And it's true, even though, like, for myself, I'm not training for any sport particularly. I'm just trying to train for optimal health, and I find myself doing predominantly body weight exercises, but just things but movement based things, you know, versus just being stuck in a chair and doing a press or something like that. Like, I want to engage that nervous system, you know. And you guys were probably, the adult functional fitness classes you guys have is really the first of their kind that I've ever seen, at least in this area, for sure, you know.
What's your opinion on like CrossFit and their approach? You know, because I think overall what they're doing is good, but I also hear criticism that they can kind of be a little bit too extreme sometimes, and people can get injured if they're not coached properly. Do you think there may be an example of like a business that grew too fast and didn't keep that integrity, in a sense? You know?
Well, yeah. If you talk to 90% of trainers in my industry, they would agree with that, and they don't have, you know, pleasant words to say about CrossFit. But that's also human nature. That people like to see someone start to be successful to a certain point, and once they're super successful, then people become very judgmental and negative to make themselves feel better about their world. So there's a lot of envy, I think, with CrossFit. I think CrossFit's I believe today anything that gets someone moving is a good thing. 80% of people don't move and exercise at all. Mm-hmm. So if people dig CrossFit and that's their thing, then God bless them. They're working out and taking care of themselves, so they're still there for their kids, things like that. Yeah. CrossFit comes from a great athletic training background, real solid program. Naturally, when you have you grow to 8,000, and now the number's probably much more than that, gyms,
they're everywhere now,
then for sure there's going to be differences in the quality control, and you lose that. I don't look at, personally, I think CrossFit's done a great job building a tribe, a community, a place for people that feel like they want to belong to something bigger than themselves, find a home and get them active. And some people stay with it long term, some people get a little bit of igniting from it, then they go on to a more complete program for them with different things. And other people do get injury for sure, because I view it more as a sport than a fitness regime. And if you view it as a sport, then I think it's great what they're doing. If you view it as a complete fitness regime to build a body that works for varied people, I think they do some things great, and there's some things they're missing. But someone can still participate in CrossFit, and it doesn't, I could choose to go do Pilates or yoga. I'm not going to judge Pilates or yoga by its completeness of giving me everything I need for my physicality, fitness, wellness, everything. It gives me some things great, and there's other things that are absent from those disciplines that I go pick up somewhere else.
Right.
So CrossFit does do a small number of things really well.
Yeah.
I don't view it as the complete A to Z program that an active adult needs with an aging body for sustainable performance.
Yeah.
But if you can go in and enjoy what it is, and then round it out with other activities and training, then I think there it is.
Yeah, well, CrossFit has definitely done a great job of creating that tribe, or maybe cult, as you say. I don't know. What a tribe? We'll say tribe. That's a lot nicer way of saying it. But no, I mean, I think I agree 100% that, you know, they're out there, they're exercising, they're getting moving. It's a good thing. But personally, I would never step into a CrossFit gym. I've been in a couple of them, but I just don't. You know, I don't want some trainer saying, okay, go do 100 snatches or something like that. You know, I'm like, no. You know, maybe there's a time in your life if you haven't really trained that much, or you're younger, when your body can handle something like that. But personally, I think if I went in there, I'd just break. I don't know. Maybe
there's a lot of
self-limitations or whatever, but I don't know. You know, that would be my perception.
Yeah, they have a small number of lifts and exercises where we would have about 10,000 different exercises, and there's a 365-day program, and you start at A and you go to Z. And you know, CrossFit's based, there's a lot of it's just a different philosophy. But you know, my job is to give people a body that works, and that could be for an athlete for chaotic, unpredictable, anomaly type, you know, explosiveness in their sport. It's typically a single mom who works 50 hours a week, who has 3 kids, who needs to be at her best 365, and is aging and wants to get back to her fitness she was 10 years ago in a way that she can perform at all kinds of recreational activities and go out and dance and hang out with her kids and show up for work. You know, it's a much more complete program in that case. So, but to do that, there's 2 polar opposites which are really interesting. CrossFit's based on power and momentum. And that's what athletes use as the icing on the cake to be ready for football and so on. You want to be powerful, and with your body, and in powerlifting, Olympic lifting, plyometrics, and so on, and all the high speed, high rep moves in CrossFit. It's based on being as efficient as possible with your body, being as efficient with your body as possible, doing it at a high speed for max reps, and you're using momentum. That's an athlete's best friend and someone performing. But to build a body that works and expose weak links, I have the exact opposite paradigm. We strip away momentum. We make sure the only time we bring momentum is for football players and so on right before training camp to be powerful, and for track athletes for speed. Everyone else, we strip away speed and explosive movement, and when you take away momentum, everything in the body, it becomes much more difficult, and you expose weak links in the body, and then you create exercise to shore up those weak links so the whole body works. I'd love to share this story with you, the elevator speech, but it's someone I heard talk, and their version of the story, when they were 8 years old. When they were 8 years old, they came from a family, and they had a mom and a dad. They actually had a mom and a dad in the house, and crazy stuff. Average family. You know, they were in a couple sports, nothing major. They'd go on picnics, they'd go camping, just a little bit active, and they'd socialize and so on. And he said, inexplicitly, when he turned 8 to 9 to 10 to 11, his parents changed their lifestyle, their eating, and started to put on weight. They put on 25 pounds, then 50, then 100, and we all go through stages. I've lost muscle mass, put on body fat, but then I might have, maybe I'm going to put on 10 pounds of body fat. I have some place where it's a threshold, and I basically say, I got to get my crap together. And I put on the brakes and I start to unwind it, right? And especially if it's 10 pounds, for example, when I'm at 8 pounds, I'm going to go to 10 pounds, and those last 2 pounds, they're going to be fun, and I'm going to live it up. But then I'm going to pull in the reins. And he said his parents, as many people don't today, they didn't have the reins to pull in. They had no threshold. They just kept going. His dad, he ended up losing his dad to a heart attack at 350 pounds. But get this is what resonated with me. He said that wasn't the saddest part. The saddest part is when his parents put on 50 pounds, 75, 100, 125, his world shrank. I remember those words, and he's telling me things I already knew because, and when your body doesn't work, and it could be from excess weight, obesity, it can be from disease, from lack of health, it can be from just pain, motor vehicle accident, but in a lot of cases it's from obesity and not being able to use our body. So everything that they used to do, his parents had to say, no, I can't do that. And someone would say like, oh, come on over, we're having a backyard barbecue, let's socialize and have fun with the kids, they're gonna swim in the pool. His parents would say no, like now they're having trouble getting in and out of the car and managing stairs. So his world shrank, and his experiences as he grew up got very small. So he's a very passionate advocate of fitness now, and he's a fitness leader.
Cool.
So I realized even if you're coaching someone one-on-one, you're never doing one-on-one training. It's always small group training, because if I'm training a husband, I'm affecting his wife and their children and whoever they interact with. Because I've had times in my life where I can't do anything with my body, and I'm not a happy camper. My attitude's not great, my outlook's not great, my energy's small. And then I've had other times like now, we could hike up the mountain and race down and jump over logs and roots and rocks and hoot and holler. And my experiences are greater around the world because I can say yes to everything, knowing my body will come through. And my mindset's different, my energy's bigger, my attitude's more positive, and I bring that to everybody around me. Right? So anything, whether it's the float tanks or training in my gyms, everything that's health, body, mind, it affects not just the person but everybody around them. And so I remember that world's either getting smaller or it's expanding. So this does actually circle back to CrossFit. I am a master at the circle back.
No, it's good.
Circles back to CrossFit because for adult clients, we don't in particular train them like CrossFit, although there's some good things happening there, because we want to remove momentum and remove ultra endurance and focus on the quality of movement and slow the movement down so that it exposes things in the body that aren't working. And when you slow movement down, it's similar to using instability, even on a stable floor. You do something really slowly with your whole body. Your toes and your fingertips and everything in between has to think and communicate and work. And if you're using momentum and speed, not everything's working. So our job is to build a body that works really well so people can use it for whatever they want, do what they're passionate about, expand their world. Done.
One thing I think you really hit on that was great was basically what you did, or what you're doing for people, is improving their quality of life.
100%.
So now
it's all about that.
You can go traveling and go for a hike, and you can go enjoy that hike, or it's easier for you to bring the garbage out in the morning or pick up your kids or whatever it is, right? Which is huge. And the other thing you said that was really interesting to me was talking about slowing down and taking away momentum. Because I've just kind of gotten to that realm right now. I'm kind of doing that stuff right now.
Yes.
And he's got me doing little movements, just these little movements, and I'm sweating. I'm pouring buckets, and it feels really good. And my body, I feel more stable. I just feel better. I'm doing these little things, these one-legged, I don't even know what they're called, one-legged, kind of slightly bent over, one leg against the wall, and it's just a little hip rotation.
Okay.
Just like that, but keeping everything in line and keeping it all in one piece, all working together. And it's amazing the change that I'm noticing in my body right now, because I've slowed down. And he like took me back to square one. He's like, let's start your line on this bench, and you're gonna work on engaging your core properly first. We started there. And at first I'm like, I'm not really I'm not doing chin-ups and dumbbell press or whatever I usually squats, things at the gym. But the last couple of weeks, it's been coming together, and I'm finally feeling it in my body, which has been awesome. And I think that's the difference right there. I feel really good.
Yeah, more body aware.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
And I want to actually kind of segue into that story you just told, because when I was checking out, this is the first time I checked out petertwist.com.
Yes.
It seems to me you have peak sustainable performance as like the caption underneath it.
That's right.
And it seems to be more of like, it's not just about the strength and conditioning parts now. You're kind of expressing more just like your philosophies on life and ideologies, and including environmental awareness and nutrition and all these things, because it is the quality of life. You've always exemplified that. Like, you've always been this very, since I've known you, like from whether you were positive or not,
Right.
underneath it all, you always exuded positive energy.
Yeah.
And because you know, and you always are big about getting into nature and running with your dogs and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And you know, and just really kind of just living a very passion-filled life. And I think you've done an amazing job of doing that for yourself.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, you've had some really scary times as of like the last few years and everything, but with some sickness, and you've conquered that now. And I'm really want to get into a little bit about
Sure.
what have you learned from that whole experience of your life.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to tug the tails on this, but
No, it's the topic's fine.
But
yeah. You know, I got as far as the topic, we can talk about anything. I had to. I'm a very, you know, it's funny. I'm kind of a public person, and I travel around and do a lot of public things. But I'm also a very private person. When I have a challenge, I dive in lone eagle, and I come out and solve it. And I don't really need to share it with anyone, you know.
yeah.
But I had a couple of challenges. I was asked by Under Armour to give a motivation speech and reference it. And I referenced a couple of serious private challenges in part of my speech. And that really changed things for me, that speech did, because I recognized how many people in the audience resonated with it, how many people it helped. The emotional connection after was just unreal with how they opened up because of that. And then I thought, then it felt very authentic. You know, I try and be, and I feel naturally an authentic, grounded person anyway. But as far as communicating openly, you know, if you just be yourself and just say everything, then you can't be more authentic and real. Yeah, and that feels.
We literally just had that talk today.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's like when you lay it all out there, and like this is it. It's actually, you're saying, it's a very liberating experience.
Very liberating. Very
You're just
freeing.
like, this is it.
Yeah.
There's nothing more to be said. I couldn't say it any other way than that. You know, and
Yeah.
it's and then you're saying how empowering it can be, too.
Yeah. Well, the reason I was saying that was just I'm right now in my life. I'm trying to live my life as objectively and honestly as I can, even with my personal biases in place. And if I just live my life that way, it makes everything really easy. Because what's anybody ever going to say to you? You know, if you're living honestly and authentically, like you were saying, you know, it's really hard for what is anyone going to ever criticize or say? And when you have that kind of understanding that, like, you know, you're doing the best you can, then it just makes everything so much easier. Because it's just like, well, you know, it's okay. Even if I fail at something, it's okay.
Yes.
You know, and that's one thing I'm kind of coming into right now, which is. It's really good. It's kind of like Mike said, very liberating, very empowering, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure you guys sense a whole wave of a percentage of the population, you know, and I want to be careful not to sound judgmental, because a little bit of anything can be very a good thing, but there is a percentage of the population, it seems, they're in a convenient slumber about their health, the environment. They're going to watch, 40 hours of reality shows a week and go to there and talk about celebrities they've never even met before instead of talking to their neighbor and all kinds of things, right? And just life is over here, and they're kind of on this robotic mode over here is how I feel. So there seems to be people have a growing awareness of their need and desire for authenticity and living a more grounded life. And I think your establishment here, the timing of that is just perfect.
Thank you. Yeah.
And not only floating, but the whole yourselves and your personas and the whole culture and vibe and so on. And get being more soulful approach, less ego, more soul, right? Yeah. Thinking with our soul, not our ego.
Yeah.
And
as Mike would say, your heart.
Your heart, 100%.
Yeah.
And people are craving for that, and a lot of people aren't quite sure what they're craving.
Yeah.
And it eventually gets defined for them.
Yeah. I think that people, a lot of people who are in that kind of mainstream audience, I think that there is something inside them that's saying that something's off. You know, they're not living a fulfilled life for some reason, right? Sure. And I would go as far as saying for that group of people that it's not even necessarily their fault. Are they responsible for their own lives? Yes. But what environment have they been raised in? What was their education system like? You know, we've all been conditioned to live our lives a certain way, built upon this system that we live in now.
Yes.
You know, a consumeristic society. That's what we live in. So these people have been raised in front of the television. They've been told to consume products, junk food. They watch a lot of violence. They watch a lot of sex on TVs. These things are shaping our entire culture, and it creates a desensitization as well. Like, you know, so you see, you know, I read a book that was interesting. They said something along the lines that
you read a book.
I read a book. It's amazing. My one book.
Was it an audio book or was it?
No, this was a real book with pages that you turn and everything. It was amazing. Cool. Not even on a phone. No, but they said something like the average child witnesses on TV 30,000 murders by the age of 6. So how's that shaping their psyche?
Sure, yeah.
You know, and that's the society we're living in right now. So these people, you know, they're kind of trapped on these tracks, but they don't even know it.
Right.
You know, but there are people waking up. But the problem is, we talked about this a little bit before the podcast, when you start bringing these new paradigms, like new ways of thinking, mindfulness, holistic wellness, yoga, meditation, whatever you want to call it, it starts threatening people's belief systems, you know, and that's when you get that resistance.
Exactly.
And they don't want to hear it.
Yes.
You know? Or they'll get, some people outright just, they'll dismiss it, or they'll get angry about it, or whatever.
Yeah.
But if, you know, one interesting quote I heard in another book that I read actually was that
liar
resistance
That's two.
It's 2. I know, I'm on 2 right now. I got a few under my belt, but they said resistance is the first step towards transformation. You know, so if you're resisting something, there's a very good chance that there's something in there that you should look at.
Well, and that's probably, the resistance is probably going to reveal whatever that seed of, you know, it's going to point the direction. If they can have an experience from whatever could cause that introspective look, maybe it's an emergency, maybe it's just you know, some sort of epiphanic moment they have in nature, or who knows what could cause it. Anything could cause it. It could happen at any time, and then they have that understanding, and like, even if they don't know how to define it or identify it yet, they can, you know, if the openness is there, once that crack is open, the light's going to start pouring out.
100%. You know? That's what peak sustainable performance.com is about.
Oh, is that called Peak Performance? I missed that one.
Well, it's the same as petertwist.com, and I
okay.
have that. I've, you know, in my industry with some name recognition, people will go to Peter Twist and
okay,
remember
but that's
that.
what it's about, though, eh?
And we had some fun coming up with the edgy name for a blog. We were going to go with Get Twisted and, you know, twist your mind and things like that, because it was about changing resistance into transformation and that whole process.
Cool.
You know, if some people tend to need some compelling information to make them pause and pause their resistance and be open to learning knowledge, and then they need the solution and probably motivation and inspiration to continue. But petertwist.com, Peak Sustainable Performance, I really went with Peak Sustainable Performance because I've coached over 700 pro athletes, which just means I've been around a long time and on that path. But I do not believe even for them in peak performance anymore, unless there may be an Olympic athlete peaking once every 4 years. You know, the Vancouver Canucks need to peak about 3 times a week. You know, they're never at their peak.
Right.
You can't. So it's what's the best you can be and sustain that. And we have so much in the world that we're just trying to get people active in anything, and you know, you keep hearing recommendations for what's the minimal that someone could do to be fit or healthy, and
quick fixes,
why aren't people going to be as great as they can be? What happened to that?
Right.
But it's the sustainables the peak is a recognition that we're always learning and growing, and let's get on that. You know, challenge our beliefs, move from resistance to transformation for those that want to learn and grow and have their life that way, and become the best we can be in all ways, but at a level we can sustain it long term. The sustainability does tie into other areas of come to believe. There's a saying I like, and it ties to being responsible for yourself. It's a leader of one, a leader of many. You can't lead one, you can't lead any.
I love that saying.
And so that could be,
that's awesome.
In my family, it kind of takes the pressure off people. I don't have to like run a team or my family or a corporation or an army. I just have to look after myself. I just have to prove that I can actually make decisions and take actions that are, make me healthy and strong, perhaps, if that's what we're looking at. But if I can be a leader of one, then I can be a leader of many. If I can't lead one, I can't lead any. So there's peak sustainable performance is a little bit about dealing with resistance and trying to stimulate transformation by exposing people to more compelling information. And with that, it's about alignment. So that I'm realizing now with my clients or myself as an individual that if I just look after myself, you often hear parents say, oh, I would work out, but I'm too busy and my kids and this and that. And that's not valid. And stop watching 20 hours of TV a week then. Just take 2 of those hours, or show enough interest in your kids. You'd go on Google for 5 minutes and Google healthy foods and read. Like, information is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Opportunity is everywhere.
Well, at this point, I think ignorance is really a choice, right? I mean, anybody can look up anything online whenever you want, pretty much, from your phone.
100%. It is a choice. And for a parent to be the opportunity to be fit and active, that's the most generous thing they can do, for their spouse, so they live a vibrant life together, but for their kids. And so Peak Sustainable Performance and petertwist.com is a bit about alignment, so that I'm recognizing for my clients or myself what I do for myself, lifestyle, activity, the type of food I bring into the home. If it's all self-serving so that I can be at my best, I'm at my best for those I love, and if I'm not at my best, or if I'm sick or dead, not really good for anybody. So it looks after them in that way. But it also, if I'm doing the right things for myself, then my spouse and my kids have access to all the same things, and then we end up doing that together. So by looking after ourselves, we're not selfish, we're actually generous, and we're giving a legacy to our kids and so on. So it's a little bit of a flipping around on being aware and accountable for yourself, the opportunities for yourself, and then what food I eat as an individual is also going to affect my kids' health, but it's also going to affect whether I'm supporting factory farming and torturing animals and the environmental destruction from that. It's going to, the type of food that I eat will affect, am I supporting a health-based business, and it affects the earth and all kinds of things. So I can kind of check off a lot of things I believe in just by picking one food over the other. Yeah. And if you can do that in all parts of your life, where everything's in alignment, and you're making a positive impact with that legacy, I think.
And I think too, it's like what you said is really interesting, how, maybe you're alluding to this, that it's not selfishness at all. In fact, it's actually less selfish, because now you're showing up better for your kids, your family, whatever.
100%.
And it reminds me of a phrase, or a saying, I don't know who said it. I should read more books, I guess. I don't know. But
let's make notes.
I should make notes. That's what I should do. But it says, first you fix yourself, then you fix your family, then you fix your community, then you fix your country, then you fix the world.
Right.
So how can you go and be some great world leader and make all this change if you're still broken on the inside?
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
What was this phrase you used? Leader of one.
Leader of many. You can't lead one. You can't lead any.
Yeah. There you go.
And hence there's. Happiness comes from I'm going to quote you on that now, Andy, because happiness comes from within.
Yeah.
People are looking for things that they can acquire for happiness, or someone else, maybe their girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, judging them on what they're not doing that they're required to do to make them happy, when instead of like caring unconditionally and loving without expectations and showing up, focus on, like very much you said, I'm just trying to get my own shit together. I'm going to focus on improving myself and own my happiness inside. Then I'm going to show up and give that to someone, versus showing up and nattering at someone, telling them why they're not making me happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and everyone can find that happiness within and then bring that to the equation, and no need to judge someone else.
If we can do that, if everyone can take steps in that direction and start taking that on as a personal ethos and goal, it'll change the world.
100%.
Just
change
take care of your shit.
One mind at a time.
And just take care of your own shit. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It really is, and it's gonna, and I think this type of mentality, it is spreading, it's growing. You know, I'm very optimistic. I think the internet's a huge tool when it's used appropriately for that regard, and you know, we're seeing the online tribes come together, and then we're bringing them together in real life as well. You know, and that's why it's been really cool for us to bring the Twist tribe into the Floathouse tribe, because it's been a long time coming, for sure.
Right on.
And I don't know, did you want to?
Oh, well, he's kind of, I can talk to him pretty much all day. Like, he's like right up my alley in terms of sport conditioning and body functionality and all that. We could keep going.
And life functionality.
And
too.
life functionality. Like, it's an amazing conversation, and something we should probably do again.
Yes.
What are we at time-wise now? See, we're really formal here.
Yeah.
So how are we doing for
so
time,
professional.
Okay, we've been going for a good hour.
What does it say on there?
Podcast. Oh, we're at an hour, exactly.
Cool.
Bang on.
All right, well, we won't keep you any longer, Pete. And just for everyone out there, if you're looking for, you know, whether you're an athlete or not, and you're looking to get to that next level of whatever that level is for you, I strongly encourage and personally encourage this wholeheartedly to go and check out twistsportconditioning.com and just check out the website and read what they have online there, and also check out peaksustainableperformance.com, and that's just like a blog format where because you do a lot of writing, you're big on writing and you're very good at it, and it's just great content coming from someone that's been through a lot in a lot of levels and stages in life, and so it's a huge resource to access, and it's for free.
And one thing I'd like to add too is hearing you speak right now, like about the early days of twist conditioning and education. It sounds exactly what like we're going through right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I see the parallels.
And the journey that we're on too, even my own personal journey. Like, I'm speaking at an event called Man Talks on Monday, so I'm just getting into the public speaking realm. And like, I'm just like, wow, I'm like, there's my future self sitting right there. You know, I'm like, wow, that's
You're not going to be as warped as I am, are you?
Well, I'll be my own kind of warped. I don't know, whatever. So, no, it's been awesome talking to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me in. And if I may, I just wanted to add with the blog and with my 10 gyms, which will soon be 100, with the differentiation of quality. Because we do have a lot of athletes in, we've had a lot of pro and Olympic, college, high school athletes, so we are a good home for that. I'm always careful to mention our specialty are kids and adults that have a challenge. Cool. And so we're great at taking people, you know, if you want to get from step 1 to 10, but you actually feel like you're at step -5 and you're moving backwards, and you're injured, you're depressed, you're obese, you've got cancer, you're trying to find your way again after a bad relationship, and you're trying to get your mojo and your mindset and your spirit back to where it was. Those type of things are our specialty, and I'm careful to identify that, because my staff and my coaches love taking someone through that whole journey, and people can be intimidated because they hear we train athletes and I coach the Canucks, and they might think we're not a home for them, and our home is it's probably the safest place they'll come into. It's the most positive environment for a gym that they'll be in, and we'd have their back. We love helping people overcome difficulty and turning that into an opportunity for themselves. Yeah,
and you guys are masters at doing it. And I've seen it firsthand, so it's true. And check it out. I'll have all the links posted with this episode as well. And thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome very much, and congratulations for everything here. I love just let alone floating. I just love sitting in your vibe in here. It's very peaceful and empowering.
All right. Amazing.
Cool.
Well, come back anytime.
Yeah,
I definitely will. I'll bring some people with me.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Vancouver Real. Thank you, and to whatever is.
To whatever is. Thank you.